In this video I'm going to take a look at cheaper action cameras and see how their quality compares with something like an expensive GoPro. A few years ago nothing could come close to the GoPro, but recently a few competitors have come on the market which are getting closer in quality. So the benchmark camera is the GoPro Hero 3, and this is now a couple of years old. This is the black edition, and I've been using it and have been very pleased with the results. Nice sharp lens, wide angle, good colour handling, really everything you'd want in a small action camera. The only thing I don't like about it is the form factor. Not exactly ideal for putting on a small mini quad or on an aircraft. So the first camera we're going to be comparing is the Mobius, and for what it is, it's a pretty good camera. Its main advantage is its form factor, in that it's quite small and it's quite light. The thing that lets it down is the data rate, and most importantly it only does 30 frames a second. The next camera is the Xiaomi Ji, and this is the same form factor as the GoPro. It's very slightly larger in its dimensions, but it's the same shape, lens at the front. Form factor therefore isn't ideal, but the quality of the camera and recording is really good. And this is the first of the cheaper cameras that was released with 60 frames a second, which really does make a big difference. And finally the Foxeer Legend 1, which was released a few months ago, and this actually does 1080p at 60 frames a second, but importantly the form factor is very similar to the Mobius. So on paper this really should be the winner if you want to put it on a small aircraft or a mini quad, simply because it's small, it's light, and it should do a good job. All of these sample videos have been taken with the cameras set to their highest resolution, 1080p at 60 frames a second, with the exception of the Mobius, which can only go up to 30 frames a second at 1080. The samples have been untouched, and it's the raw video out of each of the cameras. So looking at the Mobius, it does a reasonable job, but the main thing I always notice about the Mobius, particularly at 1080, is that as soon as there's any movement in the video, then you lose an awful lot of detail because the data rate is just not fast enough. Look at the Xiaomi now, and it's doing a really good job, good light handling, reasonably sharp, not quite as good as the GoPro. But the main thing that you notice is the smoothness of the video. Because it's recording at a higher data rate and with the 60 frames a second, it's certainly a lot smoother than the Mobius. And now the Foxeer, and in terms of light handling it does a reasonable job from dark to light, but the main thing that lets it down in most scenes is that the colour is oversaturated and there's too much contrast, so the detail looks crushed. The GoPro does a really good job, good light handling, good colour, nice natural image. If I'm being really critical in this particular scene, the white balance is a little bit off, but overall it's the best out of these cameras. Looking towards bright areas, the Gopro does a lot better job than the Xiaomi and the Foxeer. Both of them lose quite a bit of detail in very bright and contrasty conditions. In this scene, the Mobius is doing particularly well. It's keeping quite a lot of the detail and resolution, and it's also quite a natural colour. I'm just wondering if the Mobius's lower frame rate at 30 frames a second is doing a bit better in the darker scenes. The Xiaomi's done a reasonable job in this scene, but it's probably not as good as the Gopro. The Foxeer has got the white balance quite a long way off and the colours look really yellow. The Gopro, as always, does a really good job. Nice natural colours and nice and sharp, lots of detail. They all do a reasonable job of going from dark to bright light. None of them are particularly good. If anything, the Mobius is just slightly better than the other cameras in this scene. So this is indoors with relatively low light, and you can see that all of the cameras are doing a reasonable job, but the Mobius is becoming really quite noisy. This clip really shows off the difference between the Xiaomi G and the GoPro Black Edition against the Foxeer. The Xiaomi G and the GoPro are almost identical, doing a really good job on the detail of the bark in the tree. You can barely see the join between the two. However, looking at the Foxeer, you can see that a lot of detail has been lost and the colours are oversaturated and crushed. So the initial results from the Foxeer are not as good as I would have hoped. Certainly better quality than the Mobius because of the higher frame rate. However, not as good as the Xiaomi G, and certainly not as good as the GoPro Black Edition. But I'm still hopeful about the Foxeer because I understand a lot of the hardware is the same as in the Xiaomi G. So I'm hoping with a future firmware release we'll get some better quality out of the camera, and it would be nice to see some control over the colours and the saturation. At the moment, the application that comes with the Foxeer doesn't allow you to change the colour balance. I hope you found this video interesting, and I look forward to hearing any comments that you might have about your experience of using any of these cameras. What I'm planning to do in the next video is put all 4 cameras on a multi-rotor so that I can actually look at how they perform when they're being flown around, and particularly when they're subject to quite a bit of vibration. So I've got to wait for some better weather to do that, so that's going to be coming up in the next video.